什么是未来？观众朋友，你有没有想过未来会是什么样子的？我相信最近这5到10年，人类生活的可以说是日新月异。某种程度上，可能你我都有一个这样的感觉，就是我们似乎好像在经历未来。也就是说，未来呢，它不但是遥不可及，而且它几乎是每天都在有新的突破。没有错，这当然包含举凡像 AI、人工智慧，举凡像电动车，或者是未来可能的机器人，这些东西都离不开一个重要的人，那当然就是我们都熟悉的 Elon Musk。好，今天呢，我就是要特别带大家来看一个不一样的。好，我们知道呢，每年在拉斯维加斯都举办全球最大规模的科技盛会，也就是 CES 消费性电子展。今年呢，一样在拉斯维加斯是从1月7号到1月10号4天，好所展出。这一次特别有2个重量级的大咖，第一个当然一定是 Elon Musk 嘛，那另外一个也就是我们都耳熟能详的 NVIDIA 的老板黄仁勋。好，今天呢就是要带大家来先看的呢是电子数位行销公司 Stackwell 的董事长 Mark Penn。好，他就有一场线上座谈，访谈了 Elon Musk， 他是怎么预言人类的未来，而且最有趣的是他所说的东西，他认为在短可能5年之内都会实现。这个就有一点厉害咯。到底 Elon Musk 是在画个大饼，只是为了要让人们有一个期待，还是他真的能够具体的向我们展示出一些独特的想法呢？我们一起来听听看吧。 Let's go。
Chairman of Stagwell, here with Linda Yaccarino and an assembled group of about 25 CMOs of major corporations here at CES during the CES to really see the latest in technology. And we're graced with Elon Musk, who has consented to give us some of his time to answer some of these really burning questions about technology, how it's going to develop and change our lives, and
Sure.
how some of his interactions with government may also change our lives as well.
Yeah.
And so if I might start off with kind of a big overall question, and I'll do some questions, and then we'll get some questions in from the group. I have to say that I've been actually a Tesla owner for many years.
Oh, great. Thank you. You're clearly someone of great taste. I know.
I will say that I drove from Miami to Fort Lauderdale to meet my brother for dinner, about 40 miles. And I did not touch, I touched the wheel. But let me tell you that the Tesla...
The car drove itself, is what you're saying. And you did not need to intervene.
It did not need me for this entire ride.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty magical. It's like when you tell people that they've not experienced it, they don't believe you. Yeah.
Yes, and I didn't believe me either. Because I've been a skeptic about how far it would go.
Sure.
And your latest releases of software are really incredible. So I encourage people to try them.
我们都知道特斯拉它比较像智慧手机，它有别于传统意义上的车子，因为不管你是不是早期买特斯拉的，你都还可以自动的 update 它的作业系统。那你每一次 update 你的作业系统完之后，它的功能上面某种程度上就好像又往上提升到一个层次哈。我自己是蛮惊讶，因为照刚刚 Mark Penn 的意思，虽然他有去碰方向盘，但是他基本上如果不怎么去干预的话，可以让特斯拉自己就开到他弟弟家那边。哇，有没有人买过特斯拉的？来跟我们多分享一下特斯拉现在的能力的看法好吗？在台湾这么拥挤的交通车流量，真的很好奇，真的可以让特斯拉自己开吗 ？OK。
As a big question, and in that vein, coming in the next decade.What do you think is going to be the greatest advances in technology that will affect people's lives? What should they be expecting to see here from technology in their lives?
Okay. I don't want to blow your minds, but AI is going to be big. I feel confident in that prediction. But the funny thing is, if you go back even 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, I was saying AI is going to be like this massive thing that has deep super intelligence, smarter than the smartest human. People thought I was kidding. And they thought, that's ridiculous. There's no way a computer is going to be smarter than a human and be able to do all these complicated things. And now, the latest AIs are able to pass complicated tests better than most humans. Like, they can pass the medical test better than like 80% of doctors or something. AI can diagnose radiography better than most people who've been doing it their whole life. So that's just accelerating, obviously. I think probably, if you haven't seen Jensen's talk, it's excellent, and it really shows how much AI is advancing. And it's advancing on the hardware front, on the software front, in terms of data. This like the new sort of thing is synthetic data, because we've actually run out of all the books, and you literally run out of, you take the entire internet and all books ever written, and all interesting videos, like you don't need 1,000 cat videos that are exactly the same, but all the interesting videos, and you distill that down into tokens, essentially bits of information, and we've now exhausted all of basically the cumulative sum of human knowledge has been exhausted in AI training. That happened basically last year.
刚刚讲的这边我有点吓到，马斯克的意思是说，所有人类已知的东西都已经完全变成信息化，也就是 token 信息量这样的方式，全部的储存在 AI 里头了吗？他的意思是去年已经完成了，这个在我听起来有一点恐怖因为他所谓的这个信息量是怎么去确定到说 AI 已经学习完了所有人会的事情？哇，这个我有点难理解。Okay.
And so the only way to then supplement that is with synthetic data, where the AI it'll write an essay or it'll come up with a thesis, and then it will grade itself, and go through this process of self-learning with synthetic data, which is always challenging, because how do you know if it hallucinated the answer or it's a real answer? So it's challenging to find the ground truth. But it is pretty wild that AI at this point has run out of all human knowledge to train on. Which is crazy.
I know that you're building for Grok the largest AI center on the planet. And
we already have, yeah. It's in operation.
Microsoft is planning $80 billion, where I used to work for a while. But
that's a lot of money by anyone's standards, really.
What does it mean? I did a poll, and we asked, does AI making a difference in your life today? 13% said yes. And they said, in 5 years from now, will AI make a difference in your life? 87% expect in 5 years it will make a difference. What is
gigantic difference.
Okay, what is it going to do for people? Is it going to put
anything
them out
you want.
of work or to work?
AI will do anything you want, and even suggest things you never even thought of. So AI really, within the next few years, will be able to do any cognitive task. It obviously begs the question, what are we all going to do? But pretty much any cognitive task that doesn't involve atoms, AI will be able to do within, I'd say, max 3 or 4 years, maximum. And then another element of it is the robotics, is that you can't just be thinking, AI can't just be thinking in a data center. It's got to do things. So that's where you need the robots. And you need self-driving cars, which obviously you've experienced. And that rate of improvement is exponential in how good the self-driving cars are. We feel confident in basically being better than human driving in about 3 months, basically Q2 of this year. We feel confident of having a probability of accident that is better than the average experienced driver. And then it'll keep going from there. Ultimately, I think it's going to be 10 times safer than a human driver, and then 100 times safer. It's to the point where really it just won't crash. And that's happening this year with Tesla. So Tesla, and this is a software update to our cars. So as you've experienced yourself, it's the same car. It got a software update, and suddenly it's way smarter at driving.
Let me try a few timelines then, because look, I'm not the youngest guy around, so I want to be there for as much technology.
My standards for what is young get older every year as I get older.
I used to build computers in kits, right, when you couldn't buy them yet, and I don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. So some timelines, self-driving cars, government certified self-driving, you think will be within a year?
There already are autonomous in some regions, like Waymo has autonomous vehicles with no one in it, but they're limited to like a few cities in the U.S. The Tesla solution, which is a much more difficult path to go, but ultimately much more powerful, is a general solution to self-driving. The Tesla software is just purely AI and vision. It doesn't rely on any expensive sensors, no LiDARs, no radars, or it doesn't even require knowing the area beforehand. You could have it drive some place it's never been before and no Tesla's ever been before. It could even be an alien planet and the car will still work, still drive.
这个后面我会用黄仁勋在 CES 大会上面的展示给各位观看，大家就会更有感觉。好，那不过我自己还是觉得很有趣的地方，就是说，马斯克认为其实无人驾驶未来它最明显的第一件事情就是它会使得交通意外其实是更少，也就是说它取代的人类自驾之后呢，其实无人驾驶会让驾驶这个行车的安全性反而会更高。他之前也做过一部影片，我讲到一个上帝在创造这个宇宙的时候，这个宇宙其实要合乎一个高度的秩序。那其实 AI 也是一样 ，AI 就是在建立一种高度的秩序化。如果每一台自驾车它都有相同的秩序的时候，其实本来所谓的意外或者是出事的几率一定是更少的，因为人还受了情感或者说感官这样子的一个控制。好比说你开车的时候，你如果是在一个情绪不好的时候，你可能思绪完全没有办法放在这个交通的观察上面，那意外当然就容易发生。我相信无人驾驶未来反而可以让这个行车的交通秩序相对的更安全，因为人开车，路怒症的三宝太多了，这个永远都会出不完的事。
Show you some of that too, but I want to show you how we use the car to reconstruct digital twins automatically using AI and use that capability to train future AI models. Okay, let's play it.
The autonomous vehicle revolution is here. Building autonomous vehicles, like all robots, requires 3 computers: NVIDIA DGX to train AI models, Omniverse to test drive and generate synthetic data, and Drive AGX, a supercomputer in the car. Building safe autonomous vehicles means addressing edge scenarios. But real-world data is limited, so synthetic data is essential for training. The Autonomous Vehicle Data Factory, powered by NVIDIA Omniverse, AI models, and Cosmos, generates synthetic driving scenarios that enhance training data by orders of magnitude. First, OmniMap fuses map and geospatial data to construct drivable 3D environments. Driving scenario variations can be generated from replay drive logs or AI traffic generators. Next, a neural reconstruction engine uses autonomous vehicle sensor logs to create high-fidelity 4D simulation environments. It replays previous drives in 3D and generates scenario variations to amplify training data. Finally, Edify 3DS automatically searches through existing asset libraries or generates new assets to create sim-ready scenes. The Omniverse scenarios are used to condition Cosmos to generate massive amounts of photorealistic data, reducing the sim-to-real gap. And with text prompts, generate near-infinite variations of the driving scenario. With Cosmos Nemotron Video Search, the massively scaled synthetic dataset, combined with recorded drives, can be curated to train models. NVIDIA's AI Data Factory scales hundreds of drives into billions of effective miles, setting the standard for safe and advanced autonomous driving.
Isn't that incredible? We take thousands of drives and turn them into billions of miles. We are going to have mountains of training data for autonomous vehicles. Of course, we still need actual cars on the road. Of course, we will continuously collect data for as long as we shall live. However, synthetic data generation using this multiverse, physically based, physically grounded capability so that we generate data for training AIs that are physically grounded and accurate and or plausible so that we could have an enormous amount of data to train with. The AV industry is here. This is an incredibly exciting time, super excited about the next several years. I think you're going to see, just as computer graphics was revolutionized such incredible pace, you're going to see the pace of AV development increasing tremendously over the next several years.
And so that's this year.
When can I get a home robot? Okay.
So that's the other element is our humanoid robots. So I think probably most people, if not everyone, would like to have their own personal C-3PO R2-D2. And I actually think humanoid robots will be the biggest product ever in history by far.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just wild because you can just say, well, every human is going to want one, most likely, and some will want two, and then there'll be all of industry in terms of providing products and services. So that you have to say, what's the ratio of humanoid robots to humans? My guess is it's at least 3 to 1, 4 to 1, maybe 5 to 1. So we're talking about 20, 30 billion humanoid robots. And
马斯克已经乐观到他认为将来的人们其实因为有多元化的这种人形机器人的需求的用途，所以他认为未来机器人跟人类的比可能是3比1、4比1甚至5比1，这个就进入了威尔史密斯的全民公敌的电影情节里头了。各位，现在如果说地球的人口是70亿人的话，那未来就真的会发展到200亿到300亿个机器人存在。各位啊，将来我自己家里面都有机器人管家，满街跑的都是机器人的这个可能性越来越高了。好。
It's not even clear what money means at that point, or if there's any meaningful cap on the economy. I think at that point, assuming that things haven't gone awry, in the good AI scenario, I think we won't have universal basic income, we'll have universal high income.
So do you think 5 years for my first robot, or?
For Tesla, our Optimus robot really is, unless somebody's got something secret we don't know about, our Optimus robot is the most sophisticated humanoid robot in the world. It's got a hand that has 22 degrees of freedom. It looks and feels like a human hand. And we're aiming to have several thousand of those built this year. Initially, we'll test them out at Tesla factories. But then, assuming things go well, we'll 10x that output next year. So we'll aim to do maybe 50 to 100,000 humanoid robots next year, and then 10x it again the following year. It's like 500,000 robots in 3 years. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we should think of this in terms of Roman legions. How many legions of robots will we have? Like a Roman legion is 5,000.
刚刚这边呢，我比较狐疑不解的就是，马斯克有一个地方他没有解释很清楚，就是他认为，因为有了人形机器人，人反而收入会提高，而且不再是平均工资，变成人人都可以是一种高收入的群体。这个我坦白说，我不能理解。那不知道有没有非常懂机器人的这一个观众朋友可以来帮忙补充一下。我们现在大部分很多人是需要靠劳动价值来提供。那劳动价值的人，他可能在某些行业来看，他的收入相对是比较一般普通的，可是这也未必。好比说，我们知道，像你如果是从事说是好比说水电或者是木工，其实收入比一般的白领上班族要高出非常非常多。好，那我自己反而会觉得说，如果机器人都取代掉了更多的劳动市场的话，那大家难道不会因为这个劳动需求被机器人取代掉，反而造成贫富悬殊更不均吗？好比说，如果我是有钱人，我可以更大量的购买所谓的人形机器人来替我从事生产，这样的话，不会使得穷人反而就越没有工作的机会吗？所以我不太能理解想象为什么马斯克认为人形机器人的发展可以提高大家的收入，因为他这样听起来是指的是全人类。OK。
I think the next part is robotics. So the ChatGPT moment for general robotics is just around the corner. And in fact, all of the enabling technologies that I've been talking about is going to make it possible for us in the next several years to see very rapid breakthroughs, surprising breakthroughs in general robotics. Now, the reason why general robotics is so important is whereas robots with tracks and wheels require special environments to accommodate them, there are three robots in the world that we can make that require no green fields. Brownfield adaptation is perfect. If we could possibly build these amazing robots, we could deploy them in exactly the world that we've built for ourselves. These three robots are, one, agentic robots and agentic AI, because, they're information workers. So long as they could accommodate the computers that we have in our offices, it's going to be great. Number 2, self-driving cars. And the reason for that is we spent 100 plus years building roads and cities. And then number 3, humanoid robots. If we have the technology to solve these 3, this will be the largest technology industry the world's ever seen. And so we think that the robotics era is just around the corner. The critical capability is how to train these robots. In the case of humanoid robots, the imitation information is rather hard to collect. And the reason for that is, in the case of cars, you just drive it. We're driving cars all the time. In the case of these humanoid robots, the imitation information, the human demonstration is rather laborious to do. And so we need to come up with a clever way to take hundreds of demonstrations, thousands of human demonstrations, and somehow use artificial intelligence and Omniverse to synthetically generate millions of synthetically generated motions. And from those motions, the AI can learn how to perform a task. Let me show you how that's done.
General Robotics is arriving, powered by NVIDIA Isaac Groot.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what I told you. I told you that we are in production with 3 new Blackwells. Not only is the Grace Blackwell supercomputers, NVLink 72s, in production all over the world, we now have 3 new Blackwell systems in production. One amazing AI foundational world foundation model, the world's first physical AI foundation model. It's open, available to activate the world's industries of robotics and such. And three robots. 3 robots working on agentic AI, humanoid robots, and self-driving cars. It's been an incredible year. I want to thank all of you for your partnership.
So when will we have a colony on Mars?
I think we'll be able to send the first uncrewed spacecraft to Mars in 2 years. So Earth and Mars synchronize every 2 years. And so we're at a synchronous point right now. So then the next one will be in roughly 2 years from now. And then there'll be 2 years from then, there'll be another one. So for the first trip, obviously, we want to make sure that we can land Starship without crashing. We need to prove that we can land Starship on Mars without incrementing the crater count. And if those land safely, then maybe on the next trip, we would send people, and then hopefully that would grow exponentially. So eventually there will be thousands of Starships going to Mars. And I might have this really cool visual like Battlestar Galactica or something, like sort of colony ships departing all together with these bright points of light in space. I think it looked really cool. But I think the goal has to be to get to the point where Mars is self-sustaining. So the point at which Mars is self-sustaining, which is really defined as the point at which if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason, that Mars doesn't die out, that Mars can continue to grow. So if there's something that happens on Earth, let's say there's a World War III or some natural disaster or who knows what, but for whatever reason the resupply ships stop coming, if Mars can still continue to survive, then the probable lifespan of civilization is dramatically greater. If you stand back and say, how would you evaluate any civilization? You'd say, is that civilization still stuck on its home planet, or are they a multi-planet civilization? And we don't want to be one of those lame one-planet civilizations. Okay, we're going to have a respectable outcome here. Even if we don't make it beyond our solar system, we're at least got to get to another planet,
Well, and finally on my list, brain-to-technology communication.
Yeah.
Direct communication. Am I going to see that also? Because right now, this is looking pretty good for me.
Yeah. So we've got Neuralink. We've got now 3 patients with three humans with Neuralinks implanted, and they're all working well. And we've upgraded devices where the devices will have more electrodes, basically higher bandwidth, longer battery life, and everything. And so we expect to hopefully do 20 or 30 patients next year, or this year, I should say, with the upgraded Neuralink devices. And this, our first product is we're trying to enable people who have lost their brain-body connection, so they're tetraplegic or paraplegic, or it basically, like you can imagine, say, Stephen Hawking. If Stephen Hawking could communicate as fast or even faster than a normal human, that would be transformational.
Yeah.
So that's our first product, is being able to read the motor cortex of the brain and say that if you think about moving your hand, it will move the cursor on the screen. And it enables people to control their computer or their phone just by thinking. And then our next product will be blind sight, that even if somebody has lost both eyes or has lost the optic nerve, or even if they've been blind from birth, we can interface directly with the visual cortex in the brain and enable them to see. And we already have that working in monkeys. I actually have a monkey who's now had that for, I think, 2 years. And so basically enabling people to control devices. And ultimately, we think if you have a second Neuralink device that is past the point where the spinal damage occurred, we can actually transmit the signals from the brain past where essentially the wires are broken and enable someone to walk again. That would really be profound, obviously. But I'm confident that is physically possible. And then the long-term goal for Neuralink is to be able to improve the bandwidth. So right now, when we're speaking, our bandwidth in bits per second is quite low, and the sustained bandwidth of a human is less than 1 bit per second over a 24-hour period. So there's 86,400 seconds in a day, and the average human outputs much less than 86,400 bits in a day. If somebody's a writer, they'll exceed that, but most people do not output more than the number of seconds in a day. And but with a Neuralink, you could increase that output capability by 1,000 or maybe 1,000,000. So it would be a profoundly different experience. Like you'd be superhuman, essentially.
Put me down for all of this so far. An early adopter.
Yeah, and trust me, you'll really like the chip. I can guarantee it.
Neuralink 可能有的观众不一定清楚，就 Neuralink 是马斯克他的另一个公司，他的目的先是要帮助就能够用人的脑波或者说大脑的意识就能够去控制其他身体的部分。那我们知道说，如果像是这一个脊椎损伤的病患，脊椎瘫痪的话，基本上他的大脑怎么去思想，他也没有办法控制手脚嘛，对不对？那 Neuralink 就希望能够做到这一点。就大脑其实我们人的思想意念，它是可以被 data 被数据化的。那可以数据化量化出来之后，就能够去捕捉到你大脑真正的意义。也就是说，我们能够去判断，好，你的大脑活动显示出你这个时候是想要做什么。好，简单讲就这样。那听起来很不可思议，但是呢，目前脑神经科学上来讲，确实是一直在发展中。不过我对 Neuralink 是一直抱持一个比较不太认为这是一件容易的事情。人要把意识这件事情能够完全的透过神经元好的突触的这些所谓释放出来的神经传导刺激物都能够量化出来，进而可以能够实现刚刚 Elon Musk 说这些话。我认为这一段坦白说要走的时间还非常长，不知道有没有已经是这类工作领域的佼佼者能够也分享你知道目前真的可以实现到什么地步，他甚至他做到所谓 blind sight， 就是说你虽然是盲人，当然你都可以某种程度上看到，那他说已经用在一只猴子身上，那我会感觉这个听起来就比较是还在一个相对比较初始的实验阶段。那在平时的时候，好比说像现在这样简单对话的时候，其实它的输出的所谓的宽带是非常非常少的，非常有限。这就有一点像我们讲频宽嘛，那你的宽带如果越大的话，那你就可以输出的讯息越多，或者说越强烈，所以它这个意思就有点像是什么？就像科幻电影里的意念控制，就是说，如果我可以输出的讯息越强大，那我自然就更好的去。从而让好比说这个机械手臂就可以真的去执行我要做的事情，所以我怎么让我的这个意念就是说把它的讯息化，把它简单讲就像放大器一样把它放大出来，就是我的意念如果能够放大出来的话，那机械手臂感知到的这一个正确率就会越高，那能够做的事情就会越多，而且会越精准越灵敏，那就会很像所谓的超人控制了，就是我光是用想的我就可以控制很多事情。我认为意思大概我的理解差不多是这样了。
Let me try to get in one more topic here before I get one or two other questions out there, which is obviously Mark Zuckerberg made an amazing 180-degree turn
That's cool.
What's your reaction to what he did, and his acknowledgement, frankly, that the government was in fact censoring things, or he was censoring things, or the government, or some combination thereof?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, 1,000% the government was censoring things. We know that for a fact from the Twitter files. Some of the stuff was pretty illegal, frankly. And the FBI had this portal into Twitter where they could spy on anything and censor anything, and had a 2-week auto delete. So we don't even know what they did, except that they had immense power to do whatever they wanted, which doesn't sound legal. And that sounds pretty crazy. But there was also a lot of self-censoring, and I don't know, there was just a lot of censoring going on. And I think I feel very strongly that you have to have freedom of speech to have a functioning democracy. If you don't have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, then how do you know what's really going on? And if you can't make an informed vote, then you don't have a real democracy. It's incredibly important to, I think, listen to the wisdom of the founders of the country and say, why did they make that the First Amendment? And they did it for a reason. It's because they came from places where there was massive censorship, and the penalties for speaking your mind would be fines, imprisonment, or death. And they're like, we really don't like that. We want that to not be the case in America. So then they have freedom of speech.
我们之前也做过一个影片，谈到过说，美国的深层政府过去最大的就是非民选，但是却掌握最高权力的这些所谓的情报头子，其实无外乎就是 CIA 跟 FBI。这边马斯克又提到一件事情，因为他提到的，我相信是指的是在收购 Twitter 的时候 ，FBI 就可以自由的去进到这个 Twitter 的后台，好，甚至他们可以自由的去删除掉任何在 Twitter 上面的东西。他认为这一点来讲是不合理的。好，那这边他等于是爆了一个料了。好，其实也再一次让我们看到 FBI 的权力有多大。所以你换句话说，好，如果民选的总统他没有办法足够的能力去监督 FBI 这样的情报机关的话，那你就会发现这个台面下的角力其实是波涛汹涌的。好，那
you just posted "You are the media." Citizen journalism really becoming more and more important in this age of media, and you see it with the wildfires here.
Yeah, exactly.
It really takes the citizens to report and tell people what's happening.
Yeah, actually, you can think of it like before the internet, you had to have what I call legacy media, of which is you had to have some aggregation points where you'd have reporters go and find things out, then they would go to their office, they would write up articles, they would then print those articles on paper. That paper would then be distributed, and it was the only way to know what was going on. But it was very slow, especially in the old days. And I think when Lincoln was assassinated, I think it took 3 weeks for that news to reach Asia or something like that. And in fact, in the old days, like you wouldn't even know that your country had gone to war because it would take a month for the fact, hey, we're at war, to reach your village.
Yes, we actually learned about Pearl Harbor because we decoded the Japanese. They didn't know that we decoded their cyber system. And that's how we actually learned about it.
Yeah.
And we have just, if I can squeeze in, I just got 3 minutes here.
It's fine. You got a little longer if you want.
Okay, thank you. So I got 3 questions in from the audience that Dan Gardner and Toby Daniels of On Discourse want to know, do you think the internet sucks? And what do you think we need to do to fix it?
You mean the content on the internet or your internet connection? Because Starlink can help you on the internet connection. Starlink is great for internet connectivity, especially for places that have bad connectivity. In fact, I think Starlink is really having a significant effect in terms of lifting people out of poverty, in fact, in many parts of the world, where people have a product that they want to sell, but if they don't have an internet connection, they can't do it. Or if they want to learn things, basically you can learn anything on the internet for free. MIT has all its lectures that are available for free on the internet, with an internet connection. And so once you have an internet connection, you've got access to education, you've got access to a global market. So I think it's very significant at how connectivity makes difference in people's lives. But now with respect to, maybe the question was geared at, is there too much negativity on the internet? I think at times there is too much negativity. And actually on the X platform, I proposed we were going to tweak the algorithm to be a bit more positive. And then people got upset about me for that. I'm like, okay, what do you guys want?
Well, actually, the second question from Zach Moffett, CEO of Target Victory, was how do you make pessimism uncool again? So I think it ties to maybe exactly what you're saying, which is that it's become, people are afraid. This used to be a can-do nation.
Yeah.
So always very positive. And now the country, when I ask if we're on the right track or the wrong track, they never say that we're on the right track anymore.
Okay.
There is
hopefully with this, I'm actually pretty optimistic about the next. I think we're actually I think we have the potential for a golden age. So we need to, it's very important to get rid of the mountain of regulations that are holding things back. And I don't mean, there's some good regulations, but there's just so much that we just can't get anything done. You take the California wildfires, for example. We really need to have fire breaks, and we need to clear the brush back away from houses, and we need to make sure the reservoirs are full. These are all kind of obvious things. But due to a bunch of environmental rulings, you can't actually do that in California. So they're not allowed to do the fire breaks, and they're not allowed to push the brush back away from houses. It might hurt some, like, red-legged frog or something like that. It's like some sort of creature, usually a creature you've never heard of, that is preventing this from occurring. There's this fish called the smelt, for example, and so we have far more freshwater runoff into the ocean than we should, really, and on the theory that it helps this one little fish that likes a slightly briny freshwater saltwater mix, and if we keep more freshwater, then the smelt fish will not be happy. But there's no actual evidence that the smelt fish is be unhappy if we keep a bit more freshwater. In fact. So we should keep more fresh water, keep the reservoirs full, and just have some sensible fire breaks and move the brush away from houses. That's just an example. We've saved a lot of trouble, a lot of tragedy in LA if we'd done that. I think AI and robotics is going to lead to a higher standard of living for people beyond what they can imagine. So I think we're going to have AI doctors in medicine that are pretty incredible. So.
That's the final question. She says from Heritage. I got there. If all the robots and everything frees up time for humans, what is it they will do with that time, or what can we ask them to do with that time? And I think that's a question that rounds out the circle of technology. Yeah,
I guess it would be a bit like being retired. This will take a few years, but at some point, as AI and robotics get better, eventually AI will be able to do everything that humans can do. Any task you do will be optional, like it'll be like a hobby or so. Now it does beg the question: will our lives have meaning if the computers and the robots can do everything better than we can? And that is a real question. I do wonder about that myself, and that's why we need the Neuralink, so we can enhance human capabilities, so we can keep up with the machines. Yeah.
I just want to thank you for this obviously incredibly optimistic view about technology and where it's going. I feel reassured that the kind of leaps that are going to be made, particularly what you're working on, are just incredible in the next few years. Not decades away, but
right, really very close.
Really talked in terms of years consistently, and I'm very thankful for that. And I think that's absolutely tremendous message here at where we are in Las Vegas, studying what technology is going to be available to people. And really, again, thank you for the tremendous role in opening up free speech, and for the role that X and Linda is playing in terms of that. I know that we're working to get full recognition by everyone of the platform as it should be, because free speech is, I think, the proper way to go.
Yeah, I think on balance it's good. And one of the things I try to create conceptually with the X platform is it's like a global consciousness. It's like collective consciousness of humanity. Now, if you have a collective consciousness of humanity, you're going to get every aspect of humanity, good and bad. That's just naturally what happens. But I do want it to be a good and productive thing, and have this. The aspiration is to maximize unregretted user minutes. So, like, you spend time on the platform, but did you regret it or not regret it? And we want to maximize unregretted user time.
And I always go back. I always say that everything in technology was either in the Jetsons.
Love the Jetsons.
It's either in Star Trek or the Jetsons, more or less, right? And but the one thing that was never predicted in any book that I could find is social media. It's the one thing that they never really, there's no book built around how social media would develop, how it would really impact society, how it would move political movements and so forth. And it's interesting that everybody missed that in their projections. I guess the last question maybe is, what do you want X to be, and where is that platform going to go? And I think that's
I do want X to be a force for good. Exactly. I do want X to be a force for good, and I do view it as like the group mind of humanity. And we want to have a sort of a healthy, happy, and sane group mind versus the opposite. And I want it to be just like the best source of truth. If you're trying to understand what's going on in the world, that it has the most accurate, the most up-to-date information about anything large or small. So it gives you the best understanding of what's going on in the world, anywhere, anytime. Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you. Any closing thought you want to leave us with? Otherwise, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time.
You're welcome. I think I would encourage people to be optimistic about the future. I think it is much more likely to be good than bad. So that's my prediction.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
马斯克他也提到，就是说，那当如果人有更多这样子的，好像不需要干劳动活的时候，会不会机器人做的事情都比我们更有意义？我们生活变得很没有意义，但是机器人呢，每天都很忙碌，做很多很有意义的事情哈。我觉得这个东西我倒是不太担心。人从一个高度智慧、具有灵魂的我们是灵魂体，我们具有灵魂的角度来看的话，我反倒觉得大部分的人就是因为我们都太过于需要为了依赖生存，好，所以我们不得不劳劳碌碌，好，汲汲营营的过一辈子。那如果将来未来的机器人能够取代掉很多我们汲汲营营、劳劳碌碌的这一面的话，我觉得人们会去思考更多有意义的事情。也就是说，人还是自身他会去找意义的方向，而我觉得那个时候可以更注入到精神层次上面的一个追求，而不是停留在物质层次上面。当人更渴望去愿意进入到精神层次的追求的时候，我觉得人才更有机会能够真的去找到上帝。好，这个是我个人的看法。不过当然马斯克的意思就是说，万一以后人形机器人做的事情看起来都比我们要有智慧的话，那我们怎么办呢？就是说会显得好像我们是一群低能儿。
如果我没有看错，两位应该是低能儿。这你也看得出来，真是佩服到五体投地呀！
好，这样子的情况很有可能有一天，好是这样。如果大家去看西部世界Westworld 这个美剧影集的话，就是在 Westworld 里头，AI 机器人认为，其实人的本身的 DNA 的排序所能够影响人的行为的模式的变化，反而来的是简单的。也就是说 ，AI 机器人认为人类的行为反而比他们更好预测。好，因为会不会真的有一天这样子呢？这个我倒觉得不用如此的悲观，是因为我觉得还有一个东西是目前的机器人可能没有办法出现的，就是精神力。好，我认为精神力这件事情很复杂。事实上，我其实对于马斯克言论，我一直很想问一个问题，就是说，马斯克他怎么去看待所谓的人灵光一现、人的直觉这件事情？因为我同意一件事情，就是说，如果要是比数据的资料的收集跟分析，我大概就个人来讲，我已经输给 AI 了嘛，我已经输给了大数据分析了。但是人有一种所谓直觉，或者是说所谓的灵光乍现这样的东西，它似乎并不是那么单纯的可以用数据的整合就能产生出来的，这是我的一个看法。好像那个物理学教授彭罗斯讲的，它就是所谓的灵魂，也就是它是一个量子的意识，量子形态的意识的话，人的大脑，彭罗斯认为我们处理的东西已经是一台量子电脑这样的概念了。所以人的意识的思想是可以跨越时空的。好，我们可以去想象的，或者说去思考的东西是可以跨越时空的时候，这一点我认为，那 AI 真的能够做到类似的吗？好，所以现在有一派其实是不断想要让 AI 更学习像人的思考模式在走，也就是怎么样去训练 AI 去像人思考，就是因为人的思考模式，它某种程度上还是要复杂太多了。也就是说，它不是来自于资讯的接收就去思考那么简单。我觉得马斯克有一点让我觉得很有趣，就是他对于言论自由这件事情，认为说言论自由的开放程度越高，人们更容易往善的方向去走。你看马斯克他一直表现出一种积极跟乐观，就是他认为 X 平台如果在他的经营之下呢，他会 越开放人们发表自己的声音，而不是更多的监管化。他反而相信人最后反映出来的这种所谓全人类的集体的智慧，当然这里面一定是好坏声音都有，可是他认为终究整体的走向会是往更好去走。我觉得这个东西它有一个很大的前提，在于你要相信人本身有天然道德这件事情，好，也就是说天然的道德良知。好，那天然良知就是说，我不是等这个事情发生我才知道，哦，原来这是错的。好，这跟小朋友犯了错才知道什么事情是错不太一样。这个指的是说，有些事情没有碰过，但是我的直觉，我的良知都告诉我说我不应该这样做。我认为那个只有当你相信上帝是造人，而且神是用他的形象造人，其实说白了就是神他原本造人的目的是要有神的样子，也就是有神性，也就是道德层次上是展现出的是人的最光辉的那一面。但是因为人犯了罪，所以人就舍弃了这光辉的一面之后，人呢其实心里就是两个律在打架，也就是说我们既会有人性的光辉，可是我也会想要顺从我的肉体去做一些败坏的事情，因为对我来讲就有实质上的快速得到的好处或利益，去满足我的罪性。我们就会发现说，是不是我们常常在生活当中就会有这两个念头在拉扯，就是你会知道有些事情，你好像心里有一个声音在提醒你说不要这样做，这样做其实是不道德的，可是你又会觉得说，可是我就算不做了，那对我有什么好处？那可是我如果做了，对我就有实质的利益，那我为什么不去拿到我实质的利益更为重要呢？可是你就会发现，人不完全的只从自己自身的利益去走。有没有一些事情是你可能觉得说，我知道这样做是不对的，但是我也确定这个事情并不会被人发现，或者说我完全是安全的。可是尽管如此，你会愿意去割舍掉对于自身得到的好处的事情，而愿意顺从内心里一个良知的声音，让你知道我不该做，我就不做。好，还是会有哦。所以这就是一个有趣的问题了，就是人到底有没有所谓的天然的良知，或者说天然道德律？好，这件事情，那有机会我们再来谈。不过我觉得马斯克他是相信是有的。好，这个也可能跟他自己承认他是文化上的基督徒是有关系的，就是马斯克相信人类总体而言，他是可以更活出人性最好的那一面，也就是简单讲，就是更像神、更像上帝的那一面。好，那这一个部分的话，我们就静观其变，好，看看未来的 S 平台还会有发生什么样的新鲜事。未来人类的科技的发展非常令人期待且注目的哈。那可能再过不久的将来，满街就开始都是大家不需要开车的无人驾驶，以及你家里甚至你坐在你身旁的都是一个人形机器人这样的生活了。那到那一天的时候，我们真的更像活在一个天堂里头，更无忧无虑呢？还是也许有不可知的新的挑战，或者说新的人类的危机会发生呢？那就继续保持看科幻小说的心情，分享你的宝贵意见吧，在下方留言让我知道。好，我们这边是超级神队友，我们就下部影片再见啦，拜拜。
Christ alone.